I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Emily, cheated on me. We've been married for 4 years, and honestly, I always thought we had a pretty solid relationship. Sure, everyone has their ups and downs, but I trusted her completely. We met back in college, and she was always a bit fiery, with a sharp tongue and a way of bending the truth when it suited her. Still, I loved her, and she was the girl I wanted to spend my life with. It all started about 2 months ago. Emily became strangely distant. She'd brush off my questions about her day, snap at me over small things, and stop wanting to have sex. I figured maybe stress at work or just the usual life stuff. But then little things started to add up. Her phone was always locked, and she'd hide it whenever I came near. She'd get defensive if I even glanced at her screen. That was weird, but I didn't want to push her too hard yet. Then came the night I stumbled on something that made my stomach drop. I was scrolling through our shared cloud, looking for a file she'd promised to send me, when I noticed a folder labeled Old Stuff. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. Inside was a video. Something about how I wish for this moment to never come, but I think it's better I know. My face went cold as I watched her, Emily, in a dimly lit room, with a man I didn't recognize at first. It took me a second to realize who it was: Father Michael, our parish priest. The guy who's been counseling us before our wedding, who everyone in the church looked up to. They were kissing, and not just a quick peck. This was deep, passionate, desperate almost. My wife was pressed against him, her hands in his hair, and it wasn't just a kiss. I could see her fingers slipping under his shirt, clearly seeking more. The video was blurry, but enough to tell what was happening. They weren't just talking or praying, they were doing something I can't even describe. The whole thing was sickening, and I felt my knees go weak. I didn't even want to watch it all, but I couldn't stop. The betrayal was right there in front of me. Crystal clear. My mind went blank. I stared at the screen, then back at the back of my mind. A voice kept whispering, "That's your wife, that's Emily." I felt rage, betrayal, and a deep, crushing sadness I didn't know I was capable of feeling. This wasn't just some fling or a one-night stand. It felt like my entire world was crashing down. How could she do this to me? To the man who trusted her the most. I was supposed to be her husband, her partner, her everything. And she was with him. The man who was supposed to be guiding us spiritually, helping us prepare for our marriage, and now I find out he's the one she's cheating with. It's like a sick joke. I kept watching the video a few more times, trying to process what I'd seen. I wanted to believe this was some mistake, a prank, or maybe I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew the truth. That feeling of betrayal, it's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's like getting hit by a wave you didn't see coming. I didn't sleep that night. All I could think about was how my wife, the woman I loved, was lying to my face for months, maybe longer. And she was doing it with our priest, the guy who was supposed to guide us, to help us grow spiritually. Now I had proof, and I didn't know what to do with it. The next morning, I couldn't even look at Emily the same way. When I woke up, I was already planning my next move. I knew I couldn't just ignore what I'd seen, but I also didn't want to jump to conclusions without gathering more evidence. Still, every time I thought about that video, my stomach twisted. I felt sick, betrayed, and honestly furious. How could she think she could get away with this? With him? The man who was supposed to be a spiritual leader, helping us prepare for marriage, and the very man who I trusted with my soul. I started paying closer attention to her behavior. She was still acting distant, but now I saw the little lies she told to cover her tracks. She'd say she was going out with friends, but I'd find her phone messages hidden in her email drafts or deleted Instagram chats. She'd brush me off when I asked where she was, or give some excuse about needing time to herself. I felt myself getting angrier, but I also felt helpless. I didn't know what to do about it yet, but I knew one thing: I had to confront her. When she came home that evening, I was already waiting in the living room. My heart was pounding, and I tried to keep my voice calm, but inside, I was a mess of emotions. I looked at her, this perfect-looking woman who, just a day before, I'd thought I knew completely. Now I saw her in a different light, something dark and dirty behind that smile. She walked in, tossing her purse on the table, her usual sass in her eyes. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual, but there was a flicker of annoyance in her voice. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I needed to be direct. Emily, I saw the video, the one with you and Father Michael. I've seen it. I know what's been going on. Her face froze. The usual sharpness in her eyes turned into defiance. What are you talking about? That's not what it looks like. It looks pretty damn clear to me, I shot back, my voice trembling with anger. How long has this been going on? How many times? She crossed her arms, trying to act like she wasn't bothered. You're overthinking things, it's just a stupid joke, or maybe you're misinterpreting. You know how he can be, he's weird. Sometimes we talk, that's all. It's not what you think. I couldn't believe her. She was lying straight to my face. She always had a way of twisting everything, making me doubt myself. But I wasn't going to take her word for it anymore. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I had proof and I wanted the truth. That's when she snapped. You don't know what you're talking about, she hissed. You're jealous, insecure, and just trying to ruin everything because you're afraid of losing me. I've told you I don't want to talk about this anymore. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Her words cut deep. She was accusing me of being insecure, of overreacting, but I knew better. I felt the betrayal and I knew I couldn't just go on pretending nothing was wrong. I told her I didn't trust her anymore and that I needed some space to think. That was the first real crack in our relationship, and from that moment everything started to unravel. The days that followed were a blur. Emily kept lying, denying everything, dismissing my feelings as jealousy or paranoia. Meanwhile, I was digging for more evidence, trying to find out how long this had been going on, trying to figure out what to do next. The whole thing was like a bad nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly crushed. How could she do this? To me, to us? I kept asking myself over and over again. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. But I also felt this strange sense of sadness, like I'd lost the person I thought I knew. It was a kind of grief I wasn't prepared for. I wanted to storm out and end everything, but part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, she'd come clean or at least tell me the truth. But she didn't. Instead, she doubled down on the lies, and I realized I was stuck in a sinking ship. The trust was gone, and I knew I had to make a decision soon. I didn't want to live in a world where my wife was lying to my face, with our priest, our supposed spiritual guide, playing a part in it. I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me, knowing that whatever I did next would change everything forever. The next few days were a nightmare. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that video, her face, his face, the way they were pressed together. I felt this deep, burning rage mixed with sadness I couldn't even put into words. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't yet sure what. Part of me wanted to burn everything to the ground, confront her publicly, expose her, ruin her. But another part, the more rational part, knew I needed to be careful. I wasn't just angry, I was hurt, betrayed, and I didn't want her to keep gaslighting me. One evening, I finally decided I'd had enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I sat her down nervously because I knew this was the moment where everything would change. I looked her right in the eyes and I told her I knew everything. I showed her the evidence, screenshots of the video, the timestamps, the proof I'd gathered. Her face twisted into this mask of fury and defiance. You have no idea what you're talking about, she spat. You're crazy. I haven't done anything. You're just paranoid. You're making up stories because you're insecure and jealous. I shook my head. That's bullshit and you know it. I saw the video. I saw what you did with Father Michael. How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months? She scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're obsessed. You want to believe the worst about me because you're insecure. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh? Maybe that's why you're so paranoid. My blood boiled. Her deflection, her outright lies, made me realize she'd been planning her cover-up all along. She'd been good at hiding it until now. I told her I didn't want to hear her lies anymore, that I was done. I told her she could keep lying. But I was done pretending I didn't know. I told her I was finished with the marriage if she didn't come clean. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk like she thought she could manipulate her way out of this. You're overreacting. You always do. Just because I talked to him doesn't mean I cheated. You're making a huge deal out of nothing. You're insecure, remember. That was when I lost it. Something inside me snapped. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations, her bullshit. I said I was done trying to save something that was already broken. I told her I was going to tell everyone, the church, our friends, everyone who needed to know what kind of person she really was. That's when she started crying, fake tears streaming down her face, pleading, begging me to forgive her, to forget everything, to just move on. But I couldn't. Not after seeing what I'd seen. I was so angry I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice steady. I told her she had to leave. I packed her things that night, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I knew I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. She threw a tantrum, calling me all sorts of names, bitch, psycho, crazy. Said I was ruining her reputation, that I was ruining us, but I knew the truth. Her lies, her cheating, her betrayal, it was all out in the open now. The mask was gone. That night I sat alone in the empty apartment, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. I felt numb, yet somehow alive with a fierce determination. It was the kind of pain you can't escape, but I also knew I couldn't keep living in a world where I was deceived like this. I kept thinking about how she lied, how she pretended to be this innocent victim, while she was secretly sneaking around with our priest. My trust was shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to pick them up again. In that moment, I realized I'd been holding onto this false hope that she'd change, that maybe she'd tell me the truth eventually. But she didn't. She chose her lies over me, and that's what hurts the most. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know one thing: I'm done. Done with her, done with her lies, and done with pretending everything's okay. I have to rebuild from this wreckage, and it's going to take time. But I refuse to be the guy who gets played like this again. After she left, the silence in the apartment was deafening. It was like the walls themselves were judging me. I kept replaying everything: the video, her lies, her fake tears. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. I wondered how I didn't see it coming, how I didn't suspect anything sooner. It seemed so obvious now, but at the time I was blind. I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. Turns out I was living in a fantasy, and the reality was brutal. The following days were a roller coaster. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the chaos in my head. I avoided my phone, didn't answer her texts or calls. But the worst part was the emptiness, the gnawing feeling that I'd lost the woman I loved, maybe forever. I hadn't told anyone yet, but I was starting to realize that my marriage was over, that the trust I'd built over years was now shattered beyond repair. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I let her get away with this? One night I started scrolling through our shared photos. There were memories, vacations, holidays, small moments of happiness. It all felt meaningless now. I wondered if she ever truly loved me, or if I was just convenient. That thought hurt worse than anything else. Did she think of me as just some fool she kept around while she did her thing? That idea made me feel sick. I was angry at her, but mostly I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. I knew I needed support, but I didn't want to talk to friends or family just yet. I was ashamed, embarrassed, and honestly a little humiliated. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so naive. I'd always trusted her, even when she'd get bitchy, even when she'd lie. I thought love was enough, but it clearly was. Now I was left picking up the pieces, wondering how I was supposed to move on from this. The biggest question I kept asking myself was, what now? Do I try to fix this? Do I try to forgive her? Or do I walk away and never look back? Every fiber of my being was telling me to run, to forget about her and move on. But part of me still wondered if there was any way to salvage the wreckage. Maybe it was denial, maybe hope, or maybe just stubbornness. I didn't have an answer yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in limbo forever. One thing I did decide: I wasn't going to let her win. I was going to take control of my life again. I started making a plan. First, I would get rid of everything that reminded me of her: her clothes, her stuff, her lies. I needed to cut her out completely. Then I'd seek some kind of counseling, not for her but for me. I had to process this, understand how someone I loved could turn out to be so manipulative and deceitful. I owed myself that much. That night I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling this strange mix of relief and despair. Relief that I finally knew the truth, and despair that I'd been betrayed so deeply. I knew it was going to be a long road ahead, full of pain and frustration, but I also knew I couldn't go back. Not to her, not to that life built on lies. I had to start over, rebuild myself from scratch. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was ready for that yet, but I knew I had to try. No matter how much it hurt, I had to find a way to move forward. Weeks went by, and every day was a battle. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the constant loop of betrayal in my mind. But even with my best efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness, the sense that I'd lost something I'd never get back. I avoided her calls and texts, blocked her on social media, and even changed my number just to get some peace. The house was eerily quiet, a constant reminder of everything I'd lost. I thought about going to see her, to confront her face to face, but every time I imagined that moment, I felt a surge of rage and disgust. So I kept my distance, letting the hurt and anger simmer under the surface. One day, I finally sat down and really reflected on what this meant for me. I had to decide whether I was going to keep holding on to hope that she'd somehow change her mind, or accept that she was gone for good. The truth was, I'd been giving her too much power over my feelings. She lied, she cheated, she manipulated, and she used the church and our supposed vows as tools to justify her actions. I realized I was clinging to an illusion of what I wanted our marriage to be, not what it actually was. I started reaching out to a counselor, not for her, but for myself. I needed to process the pain, the betrayal, and the heartbreak. The first few sessions were brutal. I cried more than I thought I could, reliving the moments I'd trusted her, the moments I'd felt loved, only to find out they were all lies. The counselor helped me see that I'd been trapped in a cycle of denial and hope, and that I had to accept reality if I ever wanted to move on. Meanwhile, Emily kept trying to contact me, but I refused to respond. Her manipulative side reared its head, using guilt trips and fake apologies, but I saw through it. I knew she was only sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did. I wasn't about to fall for her sob stories. I knew she was still lying, probably trying to spin it so she looked like the victim, because that's who she was, a master manipulator. I refused to be pulled back into that chaos. One day, I reached a point where I could look at myself in the mirror and not hate what I saw. I realized I was stronger than I'd thought. Somehow, I was surviving this mess. I started thinking about my future, about what I really wanted. It wasn't her. It wasn't a broken marriage built on lies. It was peace, honesty, and waking up every day knowing I was okay on my own. I didn't need her or her lies to define me. I decided I would file for divorce, not out of spite, but because I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, or betray me. I deserved honesty and respect. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There'd be days I questioned everything, days I'd feel lonely, and days I'd mourn what I lost, but I also knew I was done living in denial. I owed it to myself to start fresh, to rebuild my life from the ground up. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned from this nightmare. Trust is fragile. People can hide who they really are behind a pretty face and a false smile. And sometimes the people closest to you, those you'd never expect, are the ones who hurt you the most. But I also learned that I'm resilient, that even in the deepest pain, there's a chance to heal and grow stronger. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm taking it one day at a time, trying to piece myself back together, knowing that someday I'll be okay, better than okay, maybe even happy again. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. I'm not the same man I was when I first found out about Emily's betrayal. That naive, trusting guy got broken down piece by piece, but somehow, I also found a way to rebuild. It's funny how life hits you with the worst pain imaginable and somehow forces you to grow. I've come to understand that people can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways, but also in the best. I've learned to trust myself again. I've learned that I don't need someone who lies and cheats to be happy. My priorities have shifted. I've started focusing on myself, on my health, my career, and reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during the marriage. I don't hold any resentment toward her anymore, not because I forgive her, but because I realize holding on to that anger only keeps me chained to the past. The real victory is moving forward, no matter how slowly. I think back to what I would tell someone going through something similar, the kind of betrayal that cuts so deep it feels like your soul has been ripped out. My advice: don't ignore the signs, don't deny your feelings, and most importantly, Don't stay in a situation where you're being hurt repeatedly. Trust your instincts and listen to your gut. If you find proof of betrayal, confront it head-on but stay calm. The truth is better out in the open, even if it's brutal. And when you're ready, walk away. Because no one deserves to stay in a relationship where they're lied to and disrespected. Finally, I've come to accept that life isn't always fair and sometimes people do terrible things. But I also believe that everyone has the strength to heal, to pick up the pieces and to build something better, something that's truly theirs. I don't know what my future holds, but I'm confident it will be better than this dark chapter. I've lost a lot, yes, but I've gained clarity, resilience, and a renewed sense of self. So if you're reading this and going through your own nightmare, know that you're not alone. That betrayal hurts like hell, but it doesn't have to define you forever. You have the power to choose how you move on. And trust me, someday, you'll look back at this pain and see it as the turning point for something stronger, something better. It may take time, but I promise healing is possible. I'm living proof of that.